Awesome. Good afternoon. Sarah here from the Spur Impact team. Hope your Monday is off to a good start. I'm excited to be here today. As you know, if you've been following along for the last, now 6 weeks, that a lot of us have been working from home. We have been utilizing the Millennial Summit Facebook Live to talk to all sorts of different folks. We've been talking to business leaders. We've been talking to nonprofit leaders. That's what we'll be doing a little bit today. We've been talking to young professionals and mental health advocates and really a whole host of folks that hopefully are of interest to you and can kind of help shed some light on some of the things that are going on right now because of COVID, some things that should be going on normally because, we have a lot of things going on normally that folks are trying to kind of accommodate to do things virtually. So the conversation that we're going to have today is with two members of our nonprofit community. We've got Karen, the Executive Director of Prevent Child Abuse Delaware, and Tricia from the Prevent Child Abuse Delaware team. So good afternoon. Thank you both for joining us.
Thank you, Sarah. Thank you.
So Karen and Tricia, can you guys tell us a little bit about your organization, what you do, how long you've been serving the community, and specifically April is Child Abuse Prevention Month. So if you could shed a little bit of light on what that is, why it's important, what work is going on here in Delaware, and how we help.
Well, Sarah, I think I'm going to go ahead and get started today, and then Tricia is going to fill us in on some of the new tools that we've created and some of the ways that we've been trying to respond effectively to families being at home because of this pandemic. You had mentioned that Tricia and I both work for Prevent Child Abuse Delaware. We are an organization that has been providing services in Delaware since 1978. So we have a long history of working with lots of different people within our communities to try to enhance the safety of our children by strengthening families. Prevent Child Abuse Delaware primarily does education and training. We provide educational programs for children in schools, pre-K through grade 6. And we have many partners in that work. We are currently involved with 8 school districts and 7 charter schools. And then the training work that we do primarily with adults is providing training to other professionals so that they can do a really great job of creating great childhoods for kids and strengthening their families. So we're involved with home visiting through those activities. We're involved with foster families through the Division of Family Services, and have the opportunity to also work with many other partners to be sure that people understand the issues about child abuse and neglect, but most importantly, to realize and to appreciate that child abuse can be prevented. Child Abuse Prevention Month is nationally celebrated and recognized in April. It gives us an opportunity to really reach into our communities and to provide a little extra information about child abuse prevention and why it's so important and what can be done. Some of you may have seen this year and certainly last year our pinwheel gardens that are planted with our signature pinwheels. The pinwheel represents what we want childhood to be all about. A happy time when children are growing and developing in ways that will allow them to reach their full potential. So this year, our tagline for Child Abuse Prevention Month is, and let me read this so I get it right, everyone can make great childhoods happen, especially you, especially now. And I really thought that that was particularly appropriate and important because of the unique challenges that families are facing right now, with the restrictions that we all have on our activities, and with schools being closed and doing online learning. These are very unusual times, and call on families to do things that they have never done before. We know from the work that we have done over the years that anything that causes additional stress for a family is something that can be a risk factor for child abuse and neglect. And so we're really thinking about that this year, and certainly Tricia will share some of the very specific things that we've done to try to provide resources and supports to families so that they can, sort of make it to the shore during these unsure and uncertain times. PCAD typically likes to think about focusing on the positive opposite of preventing child abuse and neglect. What we really like to think about is building protective factors for families. And we know that if these protective factors are in place, that families will be able to do a great job of raising their kids just like they really want to. And so the protective factors that we talk about all the time are helping families to develop resilience, which is incredibly important right now because it helps people to navigate difficult, troubling times and to come up with solutions and to think about doing things differently, perhaps, during these times. We also think about social connections, and social connections are critical for families. And so, we've been doing a lot of talking about the fact that distancing should be physical distancing, and that social connections and that feeling of being supported by others within our communities and our families and our groups of friends, that's critical and always important. And so physical distance, social connection. So we understand that that's something that's really important to us. We also are concerned that parents and others know about child development and what can actually be expected of children at different ages. As they grow, we want to be able to provide concrete support in times of need. And this is certainly something, again, that has become critical as we have looked at the situation that some families find themselves in, not being able to go to work because of childcare responsibilities, or losing their jobs because they are working in an industry that does not have work for them at this point. And so, what can we do to support people during these times of need? And then finally, the last protective factor that we're always trying to build is to really help families to enhance the social and emotional competence of their children. So really thinking about how can we teach our children to understand and express their emotions, regulate their emotions, and to be in relationship with other people. So those are some of the things that we are concentrating on all the time. During these particularly challenging times, we've also been looking at ways to promote children's resilience during the COVID-19 pandemic. And we know that we need to help people to be able to provide sensitive and responsive caregiving. That again, we need to meet people's basic needs. That we really want to provide emotional support for children. So really talking to them and asking them, how do you feel about this, and what are your regrets about not being able to go to your senior prom? Why is it hard not to see your friends every day? We want to support caregivers' well-being. Certainly, we cannot have strong families if we don't have strong caregivers. And we want, again, to really think about how do we maintain social connectedness during times of physical distance. When I think about child abuse prevention, I always want to think about and sort of move people into a space where they are thinking about what they can do themselves. And really, at this point, I think the most important thing that anybody can do and everybody should do is to reach out. Physical distance, as I said, should not mean isolation. We are all very much in need of social and emotional connection. That's critical to our well-being. And so really thinking about how can I maintain my connection within my home and outside of my home during these difficult times. One of the things that my staff and I have been talking about is how every act of kindness, no matter how small, can help a family to build hope. And so reaching out to a neighbor who you know has 4 children and just sending them a quick text and saying, gosh, I bet it's really interesting at your house, can be just what that person needs to maintain their sense of, being able to be hopeful about their situation, to know that, things will return to a somewhat more normal way of being, and that hope is what is going to build that bridge from where we are now and all of the unusual and crazy experiences that we're having to a new normal or a more normal place where we have more access to each other and to resources and to other things. So I think, Tricia, you can certainly fill in any of the blanks that I have left, and you can talk about the tools that we've been developing.
Great. Thanks, Karen. And just to echo what you were saying is this is a hard time for, our parents, and this is a hard time for our caregivers and for our children. And our children are working, their little worlds have turned upside down. And so it's, as a caregiver or a parent, we're trying how to lift them up. But we also know that we as parents and caregivers, we have to lift ourselves up first. So we created this handout, and if you want to go ahead and share that, this handout, it was created for parents and caregivers, and kind of, what you can do for yourself as well as your family to take care of you. So one is, and we've heard these things, and I know Dr. Walls was on earlier this month and shared a lot of the same information, but it's so critical that, that we're staying active and engaged, that you're staying connected. And, we talked about that we as caregivers we're role models for our children right now and for the people in our community. And so we have to be human, and it's of course we're going to have our bad days. But we also have to, take care of ourselves, to lift ourselves up so we can be there for the people in our lives. And, we all do realize that none of us were prepared for this and what has happened, and our children are reacting, and we are reacting, and everybody around us is reacting. But it's kind of, focusing on hope, and being flexible and going easy on yourself and going easy on your kids. I mean, parents are, at home, working and taking care of their kids, and doing their jobs and cooking, cleaning, and doing all these things with the best they can. And, we are only human beings. So we just have to keep giving ourselves a pat on the back as we move through our day. And focusing on gratitude is absolutely critical. And every day that can just be looking, just waking up and say, you know what, I have my health today, or I have, I have food, and everybody around me is okay. So it can just, bring it down to the basics. And then, reach out for help. If you need help, ask for it. We have the child abuse, the Delaware reporting line here, the National Domestic Violence Hotline, as well as Delaware 211, which is, can put you in contact with all of the local agencies, and then the substance abuse hotline. So that's just one of the items that we created. Another item that we created was this care. It's for teachers and in the schools. I don't know if you're able to see that. Are you able to see that?
Charlie, can you put that up on the screen?
Maybe I need to hit share screen here.
Oh.
Let me see. Yes, got that. You see it? Yeah.
There we go.
So another form that we created was, our teachers and our people who are interacting with our children on a daily basis. They are reporters, and we need their help. And again, I know teachers and counselors and school administration, they're navigating all kinds of things, let alone their own families. But in addition, trying to help, other families. So we put this together with help of some of our partners, of some of the things to look for as you're interacting with students, if online or anything, to how to effectively identify if there is a possible child abuse or neglect happening, and how to make a report, and then where to report it to. And then what also kind of touches on, what are remaining supportive to, caring adults, what are some of the signs of concerns, and making sure that we're making extra effort with children who've had, histories of maybe abuse or neglect in the past. So, we are in different times right now, and parents and caregivers and families are doing the best they can. And we just need to continue to support each other. And, like Karen said, it's just reaching out and, just offering some, sign of support or hope. And, that's what we're focused on in our communications, is providing the tools. And we have our website that you have on the bottom of the screen there, that we have created a resource page, that there's so much great information out there all over, but we kind of wanted to condense it into one place so people can go to one place and find that. So we are constantly updating that with all the great information, and doing, what we can to help families, strengthen families, provide hope for families, at this time. So.
Wow. So you guys are doing a lot of really critical frontlines work, and it sounds like things have really dramatically shifted because of this COVID situation. So as far as reporting goes, do you typically find that, teachers and other, like, who is doing the primary reporting of child abuse? Is it educators, or are there other folks? Is it other family members?
The largest number of reports that are received by the hotline at the Division of Family Services are from professionals, primarily school teachers, school personnel. So we have seen a decline in the number of reports that have been made. And we just want to make sure that if a family is in crisis and does feel like the stress has gotten to the point where, their relationships are really strained, and some type of abuse or neglect might occur, that families appreciate that they can reach out, and that if teachers recognize anything is happening through their contact with that family doing homeschooling, that, they continue to report, because they really are one of the best ways that we have of providing the help to families that they really need.
Do you find that you have families that take advantage of kind of self-reporting, and that kind of proactive way of saying, we've identified that we might be hitting a tipping point in our own home? I imagine that's hard to accomplish, right? That's probably a pretty difficult step for folks to take. Does that happen a lot? What does that look like? And how, it sounds like empowering people with these resources kind of helps that process, but do you find that that's something that people are increasingly doing, or is that something that you want to strive towards?
I think one of the things that has been recognized is that the number of people reaching out to resources like the 211 Help Me Grow line at the United Way of Delaware has really increased. I think people who were doing well and getting along and, had the resources that they needed to be able to support themselves and their families, all of a sudden are in a very different situation. And they realize, I'm really going to have help in order to pay the rent this month. And that's it's something that I've never, ever had to do before. Or, my cupboard is bare, and if I pay my rent, then I'm going to need food assistance. So I think for some people, that ability to reach out is really positive. I would encourage, as Tricia said, to call Delaware 211, the Help Me Grow line. They have access to all different kinds of resources throughout the state, and they would be a good one-stop shop, a place to reach out to. I think, unfortunately, for some families, they have lived in chaos, and their level of dysfunction may be such that they're not always aware that they need help, and that's something that might be forthcoming if they were to seek it. I know when Megan Walls was talking during her presentation, she said if you recognize that a family is sort of spiraling out of control or seems to have a level of concerns or issues that are concerning to you, when you reach out to them, that you ask them, what can I do to put you in touch with resources that might be helpful? So if you check in on a family member and they say, I'm really scared, my cupboard is bare, giving them the information that you have about who to reach out to, that's an excellent way to provide help, and to really encourage them to seek the assistance that's available.
Great. And a lot of the tips that we're talking about are really meant for adults, right? We as adults check in on the parents of children. And I think, as we're broadcasting to the Millennial Summit audience, millennials are not the high schoolers right now who are dealing with, being schooled from home. It's, it's 25 to basically 40 years old are the millennials. And so that's kind of our target audience today, many of whom have children of their own. But are there resources, or are there times where it's appropriate to do those kind of welfare check-ins with, the neighbor kid who lives across the street, or your cousin who's going through homeschooling right now? Are there resources available to help equip some of our audience to check in with children? I'm not sure. I don't know where you kind of draw that line. Are the resources primarily for an adult audience, or are there some that are for students and children as well?
So I would say that's a great question, Sarah. And I would say the handout that we had created for teachers or people or educators, it can apply to any adults. So, or any person. It's checking in with children and saying, how are you feeling? How are you doing? What do you like most about homeschooling? What do you really not enjoy about homeschooling? I have children of my own, and I ask those questions. And you can also, it can kind of tip you off to how they're doing. So, I encourage anybody, regardless of, what your role is, to check in with the kids and see how they're doing, because, they're struggling just as much as anybody. So, and we have to kind of give a shout out to them for their resilience. And they're just, they're trusting us to, this is what we have to do today. And, they're doing their best as well. So yeah, I would say anybody reach out to any children or any adults in your life.
Oh, I think that's great. I just, I think sometimes there's a quick gut check on, is it appropriate to be reaching out? But I think you've got a lot of really good resources that we can help equip, well-intentioned adults to have those conversations. A question came in from our chat here. So as we're physically distancing, what are some signs that you can look for that might tip off that there might be a situation that isn't quite so clear at the surface? Are there any kind of telltale signs or things that might hint that there's something going on that you see that would be helpful, for our audience?
I think if you take the time to reach out to somebody, and then, based on the conversation with them that you're having, if you notice that there's been a dramatic change in that person's way of being, this is something we look for in children when they've been abused or neglected. We say, are they having trouble sleeping? Are they not eating the way they used to? Are they, more quiet, or are they more talkative? And so I think the same thing would be true if you had reached out, like you said before, Sarah, to your cousin, and that cousin has a brand new baby, and you say, wow, it seems like you're a lot less talkative than you usually are. How are things going? And open the door so that that person can talk to you about feeling sad and isolated with a new baby. And they thought that, they would be surrounded by family and friends. And now they have this brand new baby who does all these weird things that they don't understand. And they don't have that opportunity to be surrounded by the support group that they thought that they would. And ask them, well, would it be a good idea if I told grandma that, she needs to call you and talk about infant care? So I think that there are a lot of ways that we can just create those door openers for people. Whether or not we think that there might be something going on. Telling a new mom, being a new mom is really hard. And, I'm here if you have questions, but I know that, my mother was a real resource to me. Have you talked to your mother? And, so really just taking the initiative and then opening that door so the person can talk about what's going on.
I think that's great. I think being mindful of, you don't want to be too overbearing, but opening the door to facilitate a conversation and starting to notice changes if they're different from what someone used to behave like. I think that's all really helpful, and an appropriate step, not overstepping, because I think that sometimes it's easy to overstep too, with the best of intentions, coming from a place of love. But I think it's probably easy for family and friends to overstep. So this is all really helpful. If there are any other questions, feel free, folks who are watching, to throw them up really quickly. But if we don't have any others come in, I wanted to thank both of you. And if you have any other, final thoughts, or if you have any upcoming, either, I hate to say events, because events have really dramatically changed in the next, for the foreseeable future, we've got a little bit of a different event landscape. But if you have any things that you're working on, or things that our folks can keep an eye on and be supportive of, do you have anything going on that would be, useful to get some attention shined on?
So tomorrow is Digital Advocacy Day, which is hosted by Prevent Child Abuse America, but it is online, and you can, if you check out the preventchildabuseamerica.org website, you can get more information about Digital Advocacy Day. And you'll see some messaging from us tomorrow, and it's about reaching out to our lawmakers and our Congress people to support, policies that support families and support children. So you will see a little bit about that tomorrow. So we would ask people to get engaged with that.
Great. Well, Tracy, I hope you heard that, because the last question here is, what can people do to help PCAD get the word out? So it sounds like sharing any resources that come out tomorrow. Perhaps we find, we post that link for those 2 handouts. We can get those on our social media so that they're readily available. But if there's anything else, we can certainly amplify that and put that out to our audience. But I thank you both for taking the time today. This has been a great conversation and hopefully helpful to the folks who were watching. For the rest of you, I hope that you'll continue to tune in as we do these. And if you've got experts like Karen and Tricia who can come and talk about the things that they're doing to protect our community and to lift up our community, we definitely want to give that a platform. So please feel free to reach out to the Millennial Summit Facebook page, or me, or any of us, because we would absolutely love to bring you on and talk about this. So Karen, Tricia, thank you both again very much.
Thank you, Sarah.
Thanks,
we
Sarah.
are glad to be supportive of your mission. So
Thank you.
Thanks,
all right.
Sarah.
Happy Monday, folks. We'll talk to you later.
Bye.
Have a great one. Thank you.